afternoon to all our esteemed guests, panelists, and participants who have gathered here today for the 6th edition of the Delhi University Sustainability Forum 2024. After a successful start to the conference, we are now set to generate some constructive thoughts and innovative solutions from luminaries who have not just talked the talk but also walked the walk of conservation and policy making. As we strive towards creating a greener, cleaner, and better tomorrow, we are now excited to begin the panel discussion on the focal theme of the 6th Delhi University Sustainability Forum, that is, envisaged as a venue platform for young environmentalists from all educational levels to come together and brainstorm on critical questions plaguing the environment today. The panel is designed to focus on how we can rediscover indigenous wisdoms and combine it with modern solutions to address the current environmental challenges. The ensuing discussions on the focal theme, Resilient India for a Sustainable Future, Rediscovering Indigenous Wisdom and Embracing Holistic Practices, is poised to lead us all with a significant pointer to some critical questions related to the environment and leave us with some food for thought on how to address the challenges of sustainability alongside our aspirations for development. For the panel discussions, we have thought leaders and pioneers of affirmative actions in the field of sustainability joining us, who will explore the practical approaches to shaping a greener and more resilient future for India. Without a further ado, it is my honor to introduce you all to our distinguished panelists for today's session. A very good afternoon, ma'am. Today we have Dr. Fawzja. Dr. Fauzia is a water and sustainability consultant with 24 years of experience in the fields of project management, teaching, and research. She holds a BTech degree in electrical engineering from Aligarh Muslim University, a master's in water and sustainability development from IHE Delhi, and a PhD in water governance from Teddy School of Advanced Studies. Additionally, she completed a graduate certificate in water and sanitation governance from Cornell University as a Fulbright Fellow. Her career includes roles as an assistant professor at the Teddy School of Advanced Studies and currently a freelance consultant. She advises the Zuri Industries Limited, Gurutel, and the Engineering and Environment Solutions Private Limited. She is also the National Coordinator for Water at the Climate Reality Project India and a guest faculty member at Cornell University. Her accolades includes the Fulbright Fellowship and recognition as one of the Safety and Twitter India 17 SDGs Women Changemakers. Thank you for joining us, ma'am. May I request Dr. Raman sir to please felicitate Dr. Taran. Thank you, ma'am. Next we have Mr. Chetan. He is an environmental service analyst with a keen focus on assessing and improving environmental practices. Mr. Agarwal specializes in water, forest, and environmental policy analysis with an emphasis on pro-poor approaches, especially in the context of securing forest watershed services and adapting to climate changes. He has an extensive experience in action research in the Aravalli Hills of Delhi NCR. He has expertise in promoting management for ecosystem services, including forest watershed services, and biodiversity at multiple scales, and using diverse instruments including zoning, institutions and incentive systems, and cost-benefit analysis. He was an expert member for the State Export Appraisal Committee of the NCT of Delhi, appointed under EPA 1986 by the MOEFCC. Mr. Agarwal specializes in analyzing environmental data ensuring compliance with regulations, and developing sustainable solutions that help reduce the environmental impact of business and organizations. With a strong background in environmental science and technology, Mr. Agarwal is skilled in conducting environmental assessments, reporting on sustainability metrics, and recommending improvements to enhance ecological efficiency and responsibility. His expertise helps organizations achieve their environmental goals while promoting sustainability and reducing their carbon footprints. Mr. Agarwal holds a Master's in Public Affairs Environmental Policy from Indiana University, Bloomington, USA, and MBA in the Rural Management from the Institute of Rural Management, and completed undergraduate studies in economics from S.T. Stephens College, University of Delhi. We stand truly enriched by your presence, sir. I request Ms. Komal Agarwal to please felicitate Mr. Agarwal. Next we have Mr. Sammarth, who is a naturalist, an ecological gardener, and a landscaper, and the founder of Budding Botanicals, through which he and his crew plans, designs, and executes the making of green spaces in urban areas. The Embassy of Switzerland, Mini Forest Faridabad, and the Indian Navy headquarters are some of his lauded sites. As an ecologist, he studies various ecosystems and environmental dynamics to contribute to various research projects in the landscape, influencing various developing and conservation projects. He is a certificate badge holder in the forest and landscape restoration. As ecological restoration consultant with profound experience in restoring natural ecosystems, his work focuses on reviving degraded landscape and contributing to biodiversity of various regions. His hand-on experience in restoring ecosystem will surely add valuable insights to today's discussion. We welcome you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. We are pleased to welcome Mr. Lakshay as the discussant who will be moderating today's panel discussion. Mr. Yu is a Senior Project Associate at the World Resources Institute, India. We are also excited to share that he is an alumnus of Shaheed Bhagat Singh College. His area of interest includes social and ecological justice, education for sustainable development, and the role of youth and leadership in the environmental awareness. His professional engagement in this field spans across several reputed organizations such as Action Aid Society for Participatory Research in Asia and TED. He firmly believes that a youth-led grassroots movement is a prerequisite to tackle the current environmental and climate crisis, which requires capacity building efforts among youth. We are honored by your presence, sir. Thank you. I request Harvinder sir and Veena Arya ma'am to please felicitate Lakshya and Meeta Hussain ma'am. With that, I now invite Mr. Lakshay to take over and lead today's panel discussion. Over to you, sir.
So, a very warm good afternoon to everyone and welcome to the panelists. First of all, thank you for joining us and thank you the organizers for inviting me. It's always a pleasure and always an honor to be back in college campus and particularly to the events of health, which I have been associated for almost a decade now. I was a member in the year it was inaugurated by Ms. Sweden and Iran, and ever since I've been here back. I think I'll not take much time and would like to give more of the time to panelists because I think we have already run out of almost 20 good minutes. So, as the theme for today is Resilient India for a Sustainable Future, Rediscovering Indigenous Wisdom and Embracing Holistic Practices. And all the three panelists come from very diverse sectors, have a vast experience, and some of them I had the honor of doing before and looking at their work, and some of them are meeting for the first time. So it's really, I'm really excited to hear from their experiences and all to learn from them. I think the first question, and we're keeping it very open so that we get to hear the most of their experiences. I think I'll be raising two questions, and within the time we can take 5 to 10 minutes each to respond, and feel free to add whenever you want to add and if the question specifically asked. The first question I want to put forward is that in your own work, which spans across decades and on different sectors such as water, on forests, and of course on data advocacy with communities, I would like to know that how have you embraced some holistic practices from the communities, and particularly the indigenous wisdom. You know that India has a plethora of indigenous wisdom available, some of which has been documented, some of which has remained undocumented. There is a lot of focus on Indian knowledge systems now. There is a whole vertical in life itself which talks about indigenous wisdom. And there have been communities which are indigenous communities whose rights have been denied, have not been accounted for previously. And those wisdom particularly are now being put on focus, that they're also a part which we can, which take us to part of environmental conservation and resilient India, or even the Viksit Bharat that we are, envisaging. So I think the question I want to ask is, how in your own work have you tried to invite? What are the practices that you encountered? How do you think that they were useful enough to be used and to be implied in your work, and how it has really changed the course of your work? If there are any examples, and I think, that's it. Over to you. And I would like if Fauzia ma'am start first, because being a gender advocate, I'm always up for women speaking first. So, and she's also only woman in the panel. So I think I would like you to start first. And we know that you are legal. So over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Hello everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you very much, Lakshay, for that context setting. I completely agree with you that somewhere down the line, we have completely forgotten the indigenous knowledge of India. If we look at it, and I hope everybody is comfortable in English. Sure? Yeah. So India, of course, had a very rich tradition of indigenous wisdom. I will specifically focus on water because that's the area in which I have been working now for almost close to, I would say, water especially close to 20 years I have been working in that field. Somewhere down the line what happened was that we lost this wisdom, and in the process we actually degraded our water bodies also. So India, for instance, if you look at even like post-independence, most of our villages, especially the rural setups, many of our urban setups or peri-urban areas, they had amazing water body. Johan, for instance, is a very good example, which not only was used for, I would say, for irrigation or for community water related work, but it was also considered to be sacred, and there was Johan Pujan. Even today, people do Johan Pujan. But the sad part is there is no longer water in the Johan. So somewhere, the science, and I have an engineering background, a lot of it I would blame to engineers who have been responsible for ruining the entire ecosystem. So we thought that everything can be addressed using an engineering approach. So हमने क्या किया? हमने dams बनाए, बड़े dams बनाए. Of course, Jawaharlal Nehru said, dams are temples of modern India. And जब green revolution आया और irrigation की बात आई, तो we all went ahead and built a lot of dams. Thereafter, we also went in to build canals for irrigation. Some of them have been super effective, but there are others which have had problems as well. Now, what happened over a period of time that people, and then we started giving subsidy on electricity, and people started using groundwater for irrigation. They had their private tube wells. people became slowly and slowly away from these common property resources. चाहे वो step wells होते, चाहे वो कुआं था, johars थे, tanks था. South India में Dhaka was very popular. There was other system where we were using diversion-based irrigation system. Like in Maharashtra, we had flood system. In Bihar, we have a Ahar Pani system. So there were many traditional systems in water, which gradually was abandoned. Community moved away because obviously there some bit of manual work was required to draw water. And herein, water was easily available at no cost because electricity was near free, and people have to just sink a borewell and take water to their irrigation. So in that context, I would like to now bring in my work. So my orientation or my interest with water started in 2005 when I went on to a company. I was working in Kerala and they wanted to get into maintenance of shallow water bodies. So I started working with them. We built a dredger. We started cleaning these water bodies. That was the time I realized that my engineering approach of cleaning these water bodies is not going to give any result because the source or from where the problem is coming, we are not addressing the problem. And that motivated me to take up a PhD in community participation in water management. So my PhD is not in engineering. I especially went on to do it in socio-psychological approach because I wanted people to get involved. Again, if we don't bring in community, how much ever you start doing all these projects, they will yield no results because ultimately we are only doing end of the pipe solution. It's more like a quick fix. तो quick fix से कोई जोड़ ठीक नहीं हो जाता है, वो temporary fix होता है. So, and then I moved to Terry. Terry gave me a lot of I would say avenues to work with youth, to work with community. We went on to do some projects in UP, in Haryana, wherein we closely engaged the community in terms of researching on disappearance of water bodies, or how the hydrological channels have been blocked, how the drainage has changed over a period of time. But I would say very closely, after I left Terry 2 years ago and I am advising Gurujal now. Of course, I was an advisor to them since their inception in 2019. I work very closely with community on revival of johars. So we actually try and go and it's not about just johar. Now we're treating johar as a socio-ecological system, where it's not just about johar, but johar के surrounding area को भी आप इतना lively बना दें कि community gets attracted towards it or pulled towards it. अभी क्या हो रहा है कि हम, if I ask students here in this room that from where does your water come, I'm sure most of you will not know from where your water comes. What will you say? It comes from the tap. Yeah? Or if some of you have bore wells, you will say it comes from the groundwater. What's happening after that? So we have completely disconnected ourselves from the grassroots. And if we really want to revive or if we really want to get back, I think back to roots is the only solution. Then came the Jal Jeevan Mission. I should not forget to really quote the Jal Jeevan Mission, in which we talked about Har Ghar Nal. So we are actually going ahead and putting Har Ghar Nal, but most of the places where I go to some villages in Haryana and Gurgaon district especially, the Nal is there, the Jal is not there. So from where does the Jal come? The Jal can only come from the community resources. Ultimately, they are the points where you can do actually recharge the groundwater. आप source कहाँ से ले रहे हैं? Taking it from the groundwater. It's like a bank. अगर बैंक में आप पैसा नहीं रखेंगे, तो आप खर्चे के लिए where will you draw money for your expenses? So groundwater for us, for India, where I would say 80 to 85% of our drinking water comes from groundwater, 60% of our irrigated agriculture happens from groundwater. Groundwater is like a bank account for us. And how does this groundwater get charged? It gets charged only through community open water bodies. और अभी क्या है, शहरों को हमने कंक्रीट कर दिया है, there is no way it can get charged. हमने we have actually now obstructed all the hydrological channel. So there is no way the water can come here. रास्ता ही बंद कर दिया तो आएगा कहाँ से? नौकरी छीन ली, पैसे कहाँ से आएंगे? So that is the kind of situation that we have created. So amidst that, drawing community closer to their water body will now require a completely different approach. Now Einstein said this, that you cannot solve the problem with the same approach that you used to create them. So you have to really go for a different approach. You have to make those centers of which can attract people. So we do extensively, like we work with the community, and even before reviving the Johar, we have a discussion with them. We take them on board. We only take up ponds and Johars where we know that community is on board. We have had bad experiences of vandalization also, wherein we did everything and after that, it just destroyed the whole infrastructure. So very important, and then we create about parks and places to sit around it, so that community gets attracted towards it. So this is one of course thing that I'm doing. I'm also working with farmers. That's in UP, in Lakhimpur. And farmers, again, people told me that farmers in Lakhimpur are lazy. They don't want to put in effort, and that's why they don't get good yield. So I went there as an advisor to Zuari Industries Limited in the Govind Sugar Mill. So I go there and spend a week every month, not a year, but every month I go and spend a week in Lakhimpur. And I realized I took 55 demo plots in different parts of their command area. And I started engaging with farmers, and I learned a lot from them. So when I was talking about soil sensors, and I said I will get soil sensors and we will distribute it, they said, madam, soil sensor की क्या ज़रूरत है? हम तो मिट्टी को मुट्ठी में लेके बता देते हैं कि पानी कितना है. मिट्टी का गोला बनाते हैं, ऊपर फेंकते हैं, हमें पता चल जाता है पानी कितना है. So they actually know a lot of different ways in which even identification of pests and diseases. They have their own ways of identifying pests and diseases in plants. It could be smell, it could be physical change in the color of the leaves. So here we are talking about a lot of science, but there is a lot of indigenous local wisdom that is available. And if we try to integrate it with the modern system, I think that's going to definitely be a win-win situation for everyone. Thank you. I think I've taken my 10 minutes.
Sorry. Thank you, Fawzja ma'am, for listening. I think we will, take this one round and then, add to it. So over to one of you.
Hi everyone. I was just kind of thinking of how to respond to this topic of indigenous knowledge and all. And I was reminded of the time when I'll just give a few instances from my, which came to mind from my experience. So my daughter is over 19 years old. She's in second year of college. So many of you are probably the same thing. So when she was born, so we Pandit ji ko bulaya tha, and he looked at her date of birth and time of birth and all, and he says that बहुत पापड़ मिल जाएगी, so आपको एक लंबी पूजा करने की जरूरत है. So we basically need to do a puja for 2-3 days, and he said okay, go ahead and do the puja. We are not very religious, but along with the puja, we were supposed to get the leaves of some 7 or 10 trees, the soil, matti from 7 or 10 water bodies, water from 10 wells. So apart from the puja which she said I will do at home, and you don't have to worry about it. You have to go and collect the leaves and the water and the soil. And we realized that this is a way of basically engaging at the time of birth with your environment that you're dependent on. So you need the talas, you need the water. First we didn't get water from water bodies, so we used to stay in Faridabad at time. We went to Bhagat and took some mud from there. That would only take tala people collect. But so this is a tradition which has come down over hundreds of thousands of years. So how society kind of transmits knowledge, this is just one example of. And She was true about the other part that आपसे बहुत ताकत होगा, but still she's a handful. We are very grateful and happy for that. The second instance is I was doing some work in Southeast Asia, in Laos, and people, it was a conservation group I was working with, it was an assignment. And so people there said, oh, you come from India, it's so easy, it must be so much easier to work there because people they respect and conserve wildlife. They were particularly thinking of Samarrth and how they lived in the fields of farmers in North India, the Indo-Gangetic plain. And they said in our area, anything which moves is fair game for the table and can be eaten. So the number of species that they consume for food run into hundreds over there. And here we have restricted ourselves to plant species, even if we are into beyond plants, the number of species that we consume is much less. So basically we have inherited all kinds of knowledge systems. The proverbs that we have, if you go and talk to people in the field or wherever you come from, to older people, they still remember lots of proverbs and muhavre. So many of them, people have done studies, some of our NGO Rajasthan, where they collected a lot of muhavre and proverbs, and basically they found many of them embodied a lot of knowledge. So there were proverbs and muhavre about weather. That if you see this kind of clouds, then it's likely to rain or it will not rain. So that is another way how knowledge is kind of collected or encapsulated into a two-line kind of muhavra. So can you hear me?
Yes.
So I have a few minutes.
Yeah.
A couple of minutes. So rambling on, that's another kind of knowledge which always fascinated me. The third type was the kind of institutions we have. So I have been doing work in the area of Aravallis, which is just south of this area in Haryana. And I heard about a sacred grove called Mangar Bali Sacred Grove, which Raman sir has stepped out, but he has seen it. And some of you have also seen it. Yeah. So, what is a sacred grove? Essentially, it is a indigenous form of a protected area. So, people, in the distant past, maybe a couple of 100 years, 400-500 years ago, decided that in our landscape, Mangar is about 3,800 acres of hill. So they decided we will conserve a certain part of it as a sacred grove. They call it Bali. It has a religious element to it that there is a deity who is a resident deity of that sacred grove, whose spirit is supposed to protect that. And you're not supposed to cut any tree. That is respected by all the villages around that area, 99%. So if you cut something or break something, then the spirit of the grove will pay you a visit and you will not be happy after that. So something will catch fire or your house will die or some disaster will, and they claim that this has happened several times. So now we have national parks and sanctuaries, which we have done by legislature. We have basically decided as a society and as a nation that these areas we want to conserve. So our acts for conservation are basically about 50 years old. The Wildlife Protection Act only came into play in the 1970s. Of course, there were some parks which were set up earlier. Corbett was one of the earliest parks in the 1940s or something. But sacred groves, there are thousands of sacred groves, and they've been around for hundreds of years. So that's another way of how we organize our landscape. So there is knowledge about what to use for medicinal plants, for example. but the institutions that we have, that is also a kind of knowledge which is really important. And it's the building block for subsequent knowledge. So when we plan a town now, we do zoning in any town. So if you look at the Delhi master plan, it allocates lands for different reasons. So sacred grove is also a kind of zoning in the village. This is for nature. The other areas for our use of the cattle, so there's landscape for pasture, and then the other areas for agriculture. So I feel that this idea of indigenous knowledge really it's a very broad thing. What food we consume is a kind of fundamental form of knowledge that we have. Which crops are we growing, which can we eat, which cannot be eaten, how do you process it, how do you store it. Now we have fridges and storage is much easier. When you could cool making sure that the food didn't go stale and rot. So that was a huge amount of knowledge and expertise in that. Many of which we don't require anymore, so they're just kind of withering away. Finally, I'd like to add is that the world has changed dramatically in the last 100 years, in the last 50 years, and in the last 20 years. Humans we are commandeering, the studies will say we are commandeering more than half of the photosynthesis which happens in the earth. So, of all the photosynthesis which happens in the earth, we are either using it for agriculture or extracting from the forest. So, a single species is, become so dominating on the earth. We have so many chemicals that we use, which nothing was available like that 50, 70 years ago. Our agriculture has changed beyond belief. So the seeds are all engineered by and large. Basically starve us as a society if productivity was what it was 50 years ago. So the seeds are much more productive. We use a lot more pesticides and fertilizers. So we generate a lot more pollution, water pollution, air pollution. Our greenhouse gases, our emissions are huge. So we have reached a stage where we have grown so fast and so large that we now need to kind of dampen down and control all the collateral damage that is happening. So to do that, when we look back at our indigenous knowledge and all, so there's definitely stuff to be learned, but we also have to address what we have created for ourselves right now. And indigenous knowledge will only help us so far. We have to also come up with new ways of solving these new problems. In terms of what I do, I basically started work after my master's in rural management with a NGO which worked on community-based management in rural areas. My lead was the Western Himalayas. I went for another master's, and since then I basically worked in this broad field of how communities manage resources and how we can manage our resources in a more sustainable and effective way. I've become more and more interested in biodiversity in the last 10-12 years or so. Throughout this, a common theme has been how do we organize to manage a resource. So if it's a protected area, how is it managed? How do we if you create a protected area through legislation, then you are excluding people who are living there in the past who are using that area. So what kind of interaction do they have with the protected area? How do you ensure that they are aligned with the idea of the park, and if they are facing costs, then how do you get over those? So they're not anti that. If you do protection in a better way without throwing people out. So these kind of questions.
Thank you. Yeah, I think maybe Sammarth.
Yeah. So very briefly, first of all, I'm really honored to be here, and between people who have always looked up to, and I speak of Professor Fawzia. He was fantastic. We always looked up to in our university, and Chetan, the first internship of my life was It's been a winter and so my taste and in both at and in I say because of the experience which I have with the traditional knowledge and the wisdom particularly. That has been again in the same belt where we all are working on at work. So we have this People's Biodiversity Registers program, right? So we were working in a group of 50 villages across Faridabad, Gurgaon, parts of Bhagat also, and largely South Haryana few districts, which were looked upon as model Gram Panchayats, where some of the most prioritized work for conservation could be done, or protection could be done, or else they belong to some very strong political leaders of the state, right? And in that space, when I was doing that project, I was literally fresh out of my class 12, simply completing my second year of my undergraduate studies, and that was the space which really turned my life around for me, because I got a chance to meet various people from the ground. So they used to start like we are starting really early in the week with our binoculars and cameras around our necks going around burning. But next, as the day would proceed, we would find all the old uncles, sitting with hookahs on the chopas and chatting with them. And chatting with them has been the most amazing thing I've ever had. And I've heard this. So those uncles twisting their mustache into the hookahs tell the story. And the stories are largely out of their experiences through a limit of Buddha, exaggerated, but they are born out of true lifestyles in which they have been born and brought up. And on one of these days, meeting Buddha uncles, I call them Buddha uncles. So one of the days we went to this village known as Sikri, right, and it's a very famous village, right? And we met an old man known as Singh, a guy who never knew his age, पता नहीं कितने साल के वो ऐसे उनके बच्चे कहते कि ये जबान हमने भी ऐसे ही देखा. Nobody knows how old is that man. Right? So that man, why I'm referring about that man is that let me summarize. So that man developed a tumor on his thumb. He went to a very leading hospital in Faridabad. The doctor charged him that the operation will take around 60 lakhs for the whole treatment. And the guy was like, right? So he simply laughed at it and came back. The kids were like, we are ready to spend for the oldest man. Right? So what happened is that the guy said, no, I won't take it, I'll come back. And on these days of the conflict, we happened to be in that same village. I said, uncle, क्या हो रहा है? क्यों नहीं इलाज करा रहे? Right? So he said, यार ये इलाज डॉक्टर मुझे पता है. Uncle, what do you do? Right? He says that I have been on the field, on the run with cattle, right? And in my journey throughout the childhood, I have been always observing what are the animals facing. So he said that animals are much more intelligent than humans. They exactly know what do they want to prey, what are they going to prey upon. And in that journey, he has identified a few herbs with which he's curing his own thumb, tumor in his own. Like the fact today is that उस बात को आज से we are going to see three. The guy is still alive, tumor is gone, no operation, not a money is there. And what did he use? For the plant known as Kala Mangla, to Bringraj. So on one side, we know a guy with a long beard, right, who uses Bringraj in his shampoo. But we also know an old man now, the Singh, he uses it for its anti-cancer. So that was the first mind-blowing experience which I had, right? And secondly, it also concerned me. I asked, Baba, we call him Baba. Right? So Baba, आपके आसपास वही बच्चे कहते नहीं मैं तो नहीं करता. So what concerns me as a fairly young chap here today is that are we actually taking upon that traditional knowledge, that traditional wisdom? And that brings me to the fact that traditional wisdom अपने पास भी आई कहाँ से होगी? It actually started from knowing things around you and a certain set of discipline in which you follow. Right? So even though what people would perceive as grazing as simply time pass or careers which nobody wants, I'm sure nobody here wants to become a grazer or a herder when they grow up, right? But they were actually they perform roles which are much more beyond than were just visible, is what I would say. My second instances which still continues, we are restoring a huge part of land in Uttar Pradesh. The area estimates for 200-300 650 acres, and that is also Aravallis of Uttar Pradesh, not very talked, written or mentioned about. So we have that huge land, and primarily that's a community-led restoration instead of people from outside or experts doing that, right? And our interventions there have been again very exciting, right? So as a person, as a freelance in and around Delhi, and I work with 18 schools, right? And I have a certain exposure to the children around. When I go back to that village, okay, so that area spans around 3 villages. So I work with these 3, with the children, toddlers of age 7 to 11. That's the age which I work in there, right? And these kids, these kids can name 30 species of birds. I think there are some kids who किलबिलिया बोलते हैं, इसको पेंगा बोलते हैं, इसको पटुला बोलते हैं, right? इसको गिद्ध बोलते हैं, all kind of things, right? But if I ask, one of my juniors, maybe in my school, जिसको मैं अभी भी जाता हूँ, they would say toucan, they would say perhaps a macaw, which are not even from India, for that matter, right? So that is the level of awareness and wisdom. So I would say that for, say, rediscovering indigenous wisdom, it's important for us to understand what is the root of wisdom, right? And what is something which my generation I see lacking upon as compared to what the others have to offer. So documentation of traditional knowledge is certainly a big challenge and a big gap. And is writing that knowledge in the books the only form of documentation I'm going to expect? That is a big question which perhaps we all in this audience have to ask ourselves and also answer. Because we are going to lose things which perhaps we never knew, right? And all our old areas. Another incident which I recollect is how the villages were also named. There's a village in Gurgaon known as Bhansee. Everybody heard this? Bhansee. So Bhansee भी नाम क्यों है? If somebody asks me, Faridabad से आते हैं, Faridabad का नाम क्यों पड़ा? I would think and then I say, okay, I remember Google told me that there was some Baba Farid who came and the history for it. But Bhansee has its relevance from the natural biodiversity, which says, right? So Singh, Singh, Sanskrit है. कौन से जानवर था? Singh is lion, right? And Dhon is actually the wild boar, right? So there's a thing जो गाँव के पहाड़ के ऊपर एक जोहड़ है, that जोहड़ still exists, right? And the beauty of that water body is that all the water, if you speak to anyone, you look at any hydrology of the natural flow of water, it is always down the slopes, right? So the valleys are the areas where the water has largely accumulates in large volumes and is conserved. Bhansee is one of the villages where the natural contours have been followed, and the water body is there on the top of the hill. Right? So that's interesting, and that's not a natural water body. It's something with the जैसे कि हमारे बड़े मुंबई में बना है. And that is also liked by the national geographical rights. So the Bhansee का नाम है कि उसी जोहड़ पे एक साथ एक wild boar and एक शेर किसी बड़े बूढ़े को दिखते हुए पानी पीते थे, मतलब bond as very well bonds, right? So that is how the things came up, and these are just a few stories, right? And how do we use them now is where I found. So I'm a person who is very anxious, right? I find it very difficult to sit. Right? So immediately after my class 12th, I ended up having my own firm, which I call it now according to that. And I was not very sure whether I was going to continue with that firm, during my education. But I thought, okay, career. Right? And in that, this is now where we conserve and start giving the traditional knowledge in the way. How do we use it? Right? This is not just something we would feel about or discuss. Right? So we are now reviving with the help of that traditional knowledge. Right? I remember when I sowed the seed of dhaw, Lemnogaxus pendula, at least from species of the Aravallis, I was really disturbed. यार पढ़ता नहीं है, लोग बोलते हैं मौसम में डालो, 2 जुलाई, 10 जुलाई, 3 जुलाई, it's not great. Then somebody told me, for the seed sowing, I don't follow the traditional Hindu calendar as I do. So what happened is that there are some seeds which are sown in the month of Kartik. We are sowing something just after Dashera. There are some things which are plucked after or just before the Savan. Right? And we started doing that, and the result is that at the nursery today, we have 700 specimens of dhaw and Lemnogaxus pendula along with a set of 80 species of Aravallis thriving, jaga nahi hai rakhne. Right? So we started incorporating them. Then I started working with the investors in India and Chetan. I and my company look after the whole green area of the SBSC. And then we are helping these people understand that, hey, let us relook, redesign and remodel modern basically the way the traditional Indians used to look at it. So the ambassadors are also now planting the same law which perhaps came out from that independent. Right? So that is the way the traditional knowledge has to be conserved, documented and put forward. So if I would have given a book to perhaps my clients at Indigenous visit and Man kiya to khol liya, right? But what I gave to them was a living sample, a living piece of what the traditional knowledge and the power it carries. So that's all I would like to say.
Thank you. Thank you again, all of you, for answering the question and also elaborating quite a bit on the question that was asked. I think there are threads that run all the things that we talked about, and I think I'll be elaborating it in some time. Because as a researcher, it's much more important for me to look at that. How does each of you talking about different things for water, for conservation, even for example, the data is the other aspect that Mr. Chetan talked about, how they thread together. And there's a lot of threads about how does which knowledge do we privilege. Dr. Fauzja talked about the role of engineers, right? Mr. Chetan talked about what did Britishers do, the kind of colonial laws that we had, and I think all what is centered with what kind of knowledge do we privilege. And in some ways, we end up privileging the scientific way of knowledge, and we end up disprivileging or not giving so much importance to indigenous. But I think I would also like to flag out it's not always the bipolar, right? It's not always indigenous versus scientific. And I think that's the binary we also need to break. I think I'm going to wrap up the discussion later, but I would just like to put one more question, which would be that in each of your work, and I think Chetan, Sammarth already talked about it, Mr. Chetan reflected on it, Fauzia ma'am also talked about the role of youth. I think if we can just give some glimpses, and I think we've almost had 25 to 30 minutes. We would like to keep some time for some questions if there are. So, bits of advice on how do we engage youth. Sammarth has already talked about it. What has been your experience? There has been a lot of youth groups which have come up now in all the colleges of the university. DUSF is one such forum. Of course, it's small. It takes a lot of. When I was in college, it took almost 5 years to figure out how to get into the environment field, so-called, right? And now there are much more internships available. There are a lot of other formal platforms available where you can go and intern with agencies. But it has become like a job prospect. There are something called green jobs, which is being talked about. There was not such things happening around 10 years back when I was in college. So it could be, we know that engaging youth is important. We know that their contribution is going to be enormous. We know that there are key stakeholders in the conversation on sustainability. We know that sustainability is an intergenerational topic. It can't be limited to just one generation. But how do we instrumentalize it, right? How do we take it forward? Quick points, what is lacking, what would be put forward, what is expected from forum like DUSF in future, what we would like to see. If there's any thought in this open, please, over to you.
Thanks. I think very important question. What I have struggled, I was in Delhi for 7 years, very closely engaging with youth who were working in this domain. I also had the good fortune of teaching a course on traditional knowledge and water management. Now the thing is that I think I'll just address more of the gap bit of it. I was once in a school, I think it was St. Plus. I used to run a program while in Delhi which was called School University Network, wherein we used to travel to schools or we used to invite schools to Delhi and give them an orientation about green career. And what is green career? What does it entail? Giving them a broad overview of what are the different aspects when we talk about green. So whether it's green building, or whether it's green energy, or whether it's water, or whether it's biodiversity. So that was the kind of program that I was doing. So I was once in this school, and one of the students actually asked me this question. That ma'am, when we are young, when we are small, we are very mindful of the environment, though it's not part of our curriculum as such, which should be now. Climate change, environment should be integrated. So in geography, when you teach, you should also teach about maybe how the hydrological channels are actually getting destroyed, or how a recharge happens, which rock, what kind of soil, all those things I think now And that should be linked to water, climate change, infiltration, biodiversity, kind of forests that will thrive. So all those interconnectedness should be taught in school. But this young child told me that, ma'am, what's happening is, when we are young, we are very mindful of these things and we keep working. By the time we are in 9th grade, our parents start telling us, engineer bano, doctor bano, lawyer bano, CA bano. Nobody tells us the environmentalist bano. Nobody talks about it, the environmentalist bano. तो अच्छा, उसके बाद क्या होता है? That competition comes in. You attend coaching, you do that, no? You have to get trained, CLAT, you join CLAT, you join whatever, all kinds of engineering and medicine coaching centers. So the priority of students also change by the time they are in 9th grade. So environment and environmental education were figures in the top, I would say 5 or 10 priority of the student, because they have so much of societal pressure of performance. And only the brave like you come and sit in such sessions, let me tell you. So a big round of applause for all of you also. So Terry School of Advanced Studies, which offers a lot of environmental programs, it is actually ahead of time. It was early in this, I think 2000, 2002 this had their first batch. They started this whole program of environmental science. But even today we struggle to get our seats filled. Even today. And let me tell you, every student who has graduated, including Sammarth, every student who has graduated from Delhi School of Advanced Studies is in an envious position in reputed organizations. Because every organization today is looking for an environmental person. So why I'm sharing this with you is, there is a big green job gap that is there. Green jobs that we're talking about. There's a huge gap. In fact, the data that I saw was that by 2050 there would be like 35 lakhs of green jobs. And we really don't have people taking up those jobs. We don't have even institutions offering that kind of course. So that is another gap that we have. So engineering college, when they teach environmental engineering, they will teach how to do water treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant, but they will not talk about indigenous wisdom. They will not say what you can learn from the community. They will not talk about the social sciences of it. Nothing to do with anthropology. So it's very, very, I would say, technical-centric education, and it still continues despite the job market. So very important that to understand for each one of you, and today I would say organizations, government departments give a phenomenal opportunity to you. So if you see, every ministry now comes up with something called Young Fellow. Every ministry, including Niti Aayog and all, everywhere you have Young Fellow. In Gurgaon, you have the Chief Minister's Good Governance Program. In fact, Shaheed, who runs Gurujar, she is one of them who actually started this startup of Gurujar. So youth engagement can happen actually multiple ways. One is at your level, what you are doing is already quite good. I would say you can always expand from there. You can set up a startup like Sammarth. The question is very simple. You can set up a startup like Sammarth has done, and you have to believe in it. I'm telling you, people have started, young people have gone into upcycling of waste and making products out of it. I know a young boy who has started this organization, Clean Water, and doing amazing work with respect to child. He has started, in fact, recently he got a fellowship from IIT Chennai Water Center, and I'm mentoring him as well. So he is doing a very good work with using nature-based solution, especially floating wetland, to actually rejuvenate water body. It's again a startup. So youth-led startups are there. Government is also providing through Skill India program, Startup India program. There are programs which are there for girls. There are special, I would say, incentives which are there in terms of setting up startup. So you have to have the desire and will. Sadly, our educational institutions are not preparing. I would say Sammarth is a self-starter that he started it. Did we prepare him at Terry? Yes, we gave him some theory and a little bit of exposure. But he's a self-starter, and I have no qualms in saying that he started on his own. So even today, I would say very few institutions, like Terry. I still don't see a parallel of Terry School of Advanced Studies in India. So Terry is an exclusive environmental and sustainability thing, but we don't see a parallel of it. So I think we need to negotiate with the AICTE, with UGC, with school, with NCERT to really focus on these things. They do. I remember NCERT reaching out to us, and they prepared a whole manual of how to integrate all this in school education. And I don't know what happened after that. No? That remained as a separate manual, it never came as a paper textbook. No? So, somewhere a lot of policies are being formulated. But I always say government is there, governance is missing. So, no policies, how to govern that policy, how to ensure that it trickles down. That is missing. But in case, since you people are sitting here, in case you are really looking for a career in green space, in indigenous knowledge, community, there's a huge opportunity. Human organizations are looking for it, World Bank is looking for it, Asian Development Banks are looking for it. This morning you had WWF, they hire a lot of people from there. So there is no dearth of job if you really do it well and do it with all the passion. Thank you.
So let me answer this as sitting on the fence, where I'm half a student and half an entrepreneur. And the way I see it is that I would actually pick it up from the theme, which is Resilient India for a Sustainable Future. Right? And Indians, I've been told, are naturally very resilient. And the way we should see resilience for India for the future, let me share that thought with you. Right? I hope that helps you to come up and navigate the way it is. Right? So India needs to grow, and India is growing. There's a need for energy. Right? We do need renewable energy. But the resilience here should be that the solar farm should not be on the same lands where the herders used to graze. The power line should not cross to the areas where the great investors die every day. Right? The resilience for India should be that the offshore wind energy and the offshore area should not be the migrating areas or the nesting sites of the olive-ready turtles. That is the true resilience which perhaps India should look up to. When it also talks about the urban resilience, the urban resilience has to come beyond the feel-good factor. Let me give an example. The whole idea of a cycle track, that sounds really good. But Chetan sir knows, this gives me horror feels when I ever think of a cycle track. Because in my city, when the government started building a cycle track, the first thing that they did was deleting the green belt which was existing there. Right? So the trees were cut to make cycle track, but now you don't cycle there because it's so polluted. And so the resilience has to be truly incorporated. And what I feel as a young person out there dealing with corporates, individual standalone clients, a bit of government agencies and the governmental organization, is I see that I agree with Madam that there is a need for an opportunity for jobs, but also more so what I feel now is that I'm all alone. Alone means, are there good people out there to execute all the talk? Right? I agree, the science and knowledge has no limit. It will evolve. Right? But who's going to be that person or who's going to be that group who's going to execute that? Right? You want to build a flyover, you get 100 companies out for tendering. But when you say that, hey, I want to come and do some rewilding and do a good eco-restoration work, you won't even get 4 good firms out there who can do some decent amount of work. So what I feel is that you take up resilience and adding resilience to a landscape as a domain and start navigating towards it, because I feel that there's a need for people to do something, and you don't have necessarily be an NGO for that. You can be an SME, be a private taxpayer, right? Have a team, grow your team, give jobs to people, right? Employ your friends. I'm so happy that a lot of my classmates are now working with me in my firm as a consultant, right? So that's like a shared group. So we are friends, we are also professionals, we are helping each other out for whom? For the larger good, the greater good, right? And the deliverables do offer. So market is there. People feel really happy. A young guy is right? But the goal has to be much more visionary. So that is what I would say. And if you have passion, right? So doing the job can be, I would not say, can be bound to some timeless, right? But being an entrepreneur is, I would say, the chief everything officer. Right? You're supposed to do everything else more, and you can't stop yourself, is what I would say. So take it up in good spirit, and I would say again, there's a need to add to resilience, there's a need to be resilient, and to be honest, nobody knows who's going to do that. Right? So maybe you can tap onto that. It's my food for thought for my friends and to teachers also, because I'm really amazed by the passionate person we have in front of us. I remember the first time I saw him was in a remote radio for artists, we had time to remarks, all that. Right? So you have a passionate teacher who goes to the field, who belongs to the field, and is so pushing. And most, I would say, it was not just a staff advisor, but a fosterer. It was fostering the students. So maybe, through teachers like when students over here, so I would say reaching the resilience should be your goal, and the way you do that is by doing your best.
Actually, don't have much to add here, except that you are a self-selected lot of people. Since you are here, all the people in the college who decided to come here today and you are part of this, some of the members of the club, so you already kind of showed some interest in engaging with environment, sustainability and all. So I would just encourage you to take that interest further. So if you have avenues within your college, if you have clubs or something, pursue to that. You have limited time anyway. So when I was coming here in the morning, sir sent me the Google Earth location and I went to the campus. And this is the oasis of being in South Delhi, in this part of South Delhi. So just north of this was Chirag Delhi, Laldora area, I think. And basically, I think there were about 10 trees in that entire couple of square kilometers. And then I look at this campus, you have probably 1,000 times more trees than Chirag. So at least several hundred times. So you are in a campus which is amongst the greenest campuses of any college of Delhi. So if you are interested in nature, if you have a wildlife club or a bird watching club, whatever interests you. So explore some of these things, and few of you might end up actually working, in a nature related or an environment related or a climate related. You might find such opportunities. Others of you will need more mainstream work, but this exposure will stay with you. So I used to go hiking in college, and then after college I decided I want to work somewhere which I can keep roaming in the hills. So I found a job. I was lucky. So my dream was Western Himalayas. So I used to work with organizations. So just reach out. People in your college and outside them, they're already engaged. So it's a good question.
Thank you. I think I'm going to quickly open the floor for the questions. Just before that, I was once part of a Tween Jobs panel which was organized by UNDP, I think, and again I was given the role of being a discussor. So being discussed is a good thing. You get to get a lot of ideas, and then you can transfer them to other networks. I think one of the key things that I learned in that panel was that you don't need to be, going into exclusively environmental field to become an environmentalist, right? There were people who were doing fashion designing and doing, working on, sustainable clothes or the clothes which is not sort of biodegradable clothes or some kind of that work, right? So there were journalists who were working exclusively on environmental reporting, exclusively on issues of sustainability and climate change. So I think it depends on what your interests are, and you can launch yourself into that particular direction. You don't have to be an environmentalist to work on environment, right? You can be in your own respective field. You can be a journalist, you can be a geologist, you can be a geographer, you can be a sociologist, you can be a historian, you can be an environmental historian. You can be a mathematician and you can be a modeler, right? A climate change modeler. So I think the opportunities are quite a bit, and I think just to touch upon what Mr. Chetan was saying, that network. And I think I heard Dr. Fauzia once saying that my network is my network. And I think I keep telling that because I really like that phrase. And I think, and it's a really good phrase because it's not just about talking to people, but it's exactly what Mr. Chetan said. That it's about going out and exploring and talking that, what are the opportunities available, how can you be part of them, and network as much as you can. And these are the places where you network. These are the places where you get to meet different minds. These are the places where you get to interact with a number of other people. I think quickly running through 3 themes that I identified which runs across, which I mentioned before. I think there is one we really need to think about the kind of knowledge production that we have in universities and colleges. And I think it is both inspired by the colonial sort of factors that we had. So we have education policies and environmental laws which were coming from rulers who were exclusively meant to extract resources. How much have we carried it forward? How much do we need to change is a very sort of thought that we need to put to. That also translates into that why don't we give so much importance to indigenous knowledge, and I think that's the reason, because we end up thinking that it's only scientific knowledge, because the engineer, the specialist does, it's only the mathematician who does, can come out with such sort of models or such analysis, and that is much more suitable than knowledge. I think it's also got to do with what we learned. When I was in class 5th and I was studying books from Uttarakhand government, we had one chapter in my Hindi book called Aapki Kahavatein. And they were primarily the Kahavatein which I think Sammarth you were talking about. They were like about telling stories of when will the monsoon gonna come, and when it will rain, and at what time of season. It's called Aapki Kahavatein, and I still remember there were at least 10 of them, which basically was about water, which was basically about soil, which was about forest, which were about the agriculture. And I think I did not realize that they were so important. They were primarily talking about indigenous knowledge, and I never could encounter them again in any of the textbooks. And they were in class 5th textbook back in Uttarakhand. And I think another thread, 4th thread that I want to bring in is, which I mentioned even when it comes to green job, environment solely is not about environment, it crisscross with society, which Dr. Fauzia talked about. So water is not merely H2O, it's as much as social as it is purely H2O. Same is for soil. So something which you call about hydrosocial, there's a lot of new thinking which is coming up in water field, but it is sort of across environmental sort of field, which is looking at both the role that community plays, and which includes the political actors, which includes individuals like us, which includes small groups like Rediscovering, and how they all get together and build up the knowledge that we're trying to get and invert the knowledge that exists, which kind of contests the indigenous wisdom. I think that is what I would like to sort of end my discussion notes at. I would like to open the floor for questions. I would request you to be brief. I would request you to be pointed to get a good answer, and would also request if you can direct your answer to one of the panelists so that we know that who you are. Yeah. Am I audible? Sorry, I'm just recovering from a cold, so it's voice might be nasal, but I think I'm audible. So I think open. We will take at least maybe 3 to 4 questions, right? We can start. Again, tips: be crisp, be pointed, pointed to a panelist, and yes, ask question so that everyone can learn from each other. I think we have.
I'm Charlie Mittal. I teach history in the evening college, and this is not a question. Basically, I am trying to research on the changing morphology of this area from Mehrauli, Masoodpur, my Palpur area, and how, of course, since I'm a student of history, I would go for the primary Persian texts of that period from 12th century to early 20th century. So my take on this is like, my domicile is Haryana, and I more often understand, like Mangar Bani, the sacred forests, and we also have the Neela Halls and the Sanjay Valley at Vasant Kunj, and also the biodiversity park, and also the very beautiful Terry campus at C9 next to the biodiversity park. And these villages, Masudpur and Maipalpur, are very, very ancient villages, maybe since the time of the Tomar Rajputs. And I do understand the profile given in Tabkat-e-Nasri also about the civets, about all the animals and everything, the neblas and the mica mines and those clay and pottery being made in China out here, and how JNU, then finally the Tapa of the Jats got taken in by Jawaharlal Nehru University. So I got a lot to learn from you. I landed rather on the other side, and I missed quite a bit of what you people said. But I really am very delighted to have all of you here at my college and have to learn from you, because it may take a personal audience from you to understand something for my research.
Thank you. Thank you for
I'll try to be brief since I'm a faculty. I'll try with my best economy. So my question is directed to the first speaker. The thing is that when we learned our school, like we had a lesson by Sir C. V. Raman titled, "What is the true elixir of life?" So since then we learned that it's an elixir of life in a way. And we learned it from our folk tradition, that how to preserve water and how to even predict the arrival of monsoon, by some other speakers also. We had our own songs talking about these things. Now it was a kind of a necessity, now it is made a compulsion. Once it was a passion, now it is made a profession. Where this kind of a change and this kind of a shift has taken place. Now we need some organizations, some of the governments to support us or insist or compel us to do this. Where it is our basic requirement and we are supposed to do that because of our own, we have to survive on this. I talk about the water alone. Like whenever I go back to my home from down south, we have, of course, we have the sea. A lot of water, 70% of our earth, of course, water, we are unable to use that water, right? In terms of about desalination, all those things. Still, the remaining water, when we try to make use of it, we have to be very strict in terms of very carefully utilize this water. Now, where exactly we lost that thread down the line? Where we lost it, we are forced to listen to the preacher and follow the threads. If the preacher is not there in the form of rules or regulations, etc., or legal framework, we tend to completely misbehave. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that question. I think thought and question both. Where did we really change? What happened? So I would say that civilizations, when they came, or whether it's Egyptian civilization or whether it's Indus Valley civilization that we talk about, and even today when we look at the Ganges Basin, for instance, these are the most highly populated basins. So people came in and settled closer to river, and river was integral to their living there, wherein they protected the river, they worshipped the river. In India, of course, water is still sacred. They do worship even today. Just that we have lost all the sanctity, associated with that, but it still continues to be. So what happened post-independence? Globally also things changed much earlier. Human beings would like to have convenience in their life. If something is available at my doorstep, if there is Blinkit and Zepto, I will not climb down and go to the shop across the road to buy something. And let me tell you, I paid a premium to buy a house in Vasant Kunj because it was opposite to shopping complex, and now I do Zepto and Blinkit. So that's a taunt that I always get from my family members. But believe you me, what happened after independence was that we started slowly promoting piped water system. So when I was growing up, my mother's place is in the Bundelkhand, which is today, struggling to have water. At that point in time, when I used to go to Bundelkhand, we used to have ponds and well, and we used to draw water from the well to bathe. And my father was from North Bihar, And there we had again ample of water, but still we had hand pump and wells from where we used to draw water and exercise a bit. Today we pay a lot of money to go to the gym, but gymming was there at your like in your backyard, and everybody did it every day. So the moment we got the piped water system, we actually lost track completely. I started getting water on my tap, I forgot from where my water is coming. And then the disconnect from the water body started. This gradually started spreading from urban to rural when we had the Green Revolution, and wherein electrification happened in our rural areas, and also people started getting subsidy. Even the fee for that was not there. For water, of course, there was never a fee. Even today in Delhi, I use less than 20 kiloliters of water per month, and I don't pay any money. So I can definitely afford to pay money for water, but when I don't get a bill, I don't pay money. So the sad part is the more technology started coming into, and people started acquiring technology, the respect for our natural resources or the distance from our natural resources increased. So if you even go to a village and ask them how often do you go and view your Johar, or even you are from the south, you know the tank system is so popular. The cascaded tank system which was there, it was built very scientifically to ensure that one after the other the tanks get filled. But the fact is that today, you know, the tanks is Suranga was another very important water, this thing where people knew where to break the rock and take water out from that and use it. But gradually, I would say science and technology distanced people. We started opting for more convenience when we had water, what was required. We forgot completely about the source from where it is coming. And today it is definitely hitting us hard. India is amongst the worst performer globally, I would say, or near worst performers, both in terms of water quantity, water quality, and environmental performance index. None of us actually can drink water from our tap also. And during ancient times, we used to draw water from the well, meetha pani and khara pani. And from meetha kuwa, we never required any filtration. So I think the disconnect happened there, the piped water supply, now the Jal Jeevan mission. So all these things brought in a lot of disconnect with our common property resources, and hence the neglect that started to happen.
I think we will take 2 more questions. I would really encourage students to maybe ask questions if there are any.
Greetings to all the panelists. I would like to ask, my question is directed to the second panelist. I would like to ask, what is your perspective on capitalism and Marxism? Like, do you think that capitalism is responsible for the way we see environment today and how we are exploiting our environment? And if we had adopted a Marxism ideology, it would have been a different case.
Yeah. So, my first response is that you have asked the wrong person. Reason being that, the way I see it, since the question, the first part said that what's your take, right? So let me give you my take, right? So my take is very, I would say, personal to me, right? And I say it with full responsibility. Right, and the thing is that when you're emotional, when you're passionate, right, you don't think whether you belong to A or to B. Right, you go with your heart, right, and your heart doesn't go with A or B. It goes to a context. It goes to a place. It goes to and consider the whole aspect of things. Since you pointed towards the environmentalism and the society in its behavior towards environmentalism, I would say that had it been an emotional, passionate attention towards this cause, we would not have been here. Right? The whole idea is that our two stands are always conflicting. Right? So it should not be like that. Either I am a Marxist or anyone. So you have to be not very conflicting. right? It has to be more of a soft tone is what I would perceive. The environmentalism today is also quite diverse. I would not talk much about it, but I would mention, right, the kind of environmentalism we see the Bollywood doing, right, and the kind of environmentalism we see the forest range officers doing on the ground, the kind of environmentalism we see out in hyper-diplomatic United Nations conferences, and the kind of activism or environmentalism we see from Greta Thunberg and from. So even in the environmentalism, I just mentioned 4 different pillars which are very different from each other in their approach, dialogue, and way of doing things. Right? So I would say that, and I'm also not saying that all 4 of them lack passion. Right? You can be a passionate diplomat, okay. Right? But are we true to our passion is a big answer. It is a big question for which we need an answer. Right? So I would say a more passionist approach, a more me person approach, and also a less eventful, you know. I mean, environmentalism is very eventful. बहुत बड़ा event बन जाता है छोटी चीज़ का, right? It has to be mundane and boring. It has to be everyday. It has to be me. Right? So I hope I answered your question in a way where I don't belong to perhaps both of them. I just belong to my mind, my heart, and perhaps what the bees and the butterflies say.
Thank you.
Okay, the chance for last question. Or everybody's. I think if there is none, then we'll move forward. I think, yeah, first of all, thank you. There is one. Okay.
Basically, I don't have any question, but I would like to answer the question you raised. You were asking about the impact of capitalism or Marxism on the environment. See, in this regard, there are numerous examples that I can gather. If you want to know about the impact of capitalism on the environment, there are very well-studied models, economic models, if you know about something called as Kuznets models or Kuznets curves in the economics. So these curves hypothesize that when you go for the initial development, there will be environmental cost, there will be environmental degradation. But once you attain some saturation in the terms of standard of living or per capita income, in that case, you may be willing to spend more on the environment, and that may eventually turn into the environmental protection. Okay? But interestingly, these all are theoretical concepts, or these are totally hypothetical concepts. I haven't seen any given country which has raised the income and then again actively converted back the environmental degradation into environmental conservation. If you want to talk about the other side, like Marxism, so if you read about the Indian economy in the initial years, it was a mix of both capitalist and Marxist model. Okay, and one very beautiful example, if you know about the Green Revolution of India, the 1970s and 60s, we have seen that. At that point of time, it was a need. We need to add more grains. Well understood. But if you look at the long-term impacts of the Green Revolution now, you will find that it is causing more harm to the state of Punjab and Haryana. What inputs from the government has in turn led to land degradation, shortage of the water, more agrochemicals in the soil. So again, if you compare both of them, there are always some negatives attached to each model. When you talk about environment, it's all about the environmental costs that are associated with any given model. You have to gauge that, and then accordingly you have to implement it. So it is not any something like fundamental or you have to go along with any given model. I hope I fulfill your query.
Okay, thank you for sharing your insights, and I think that would have answered the question. Okay, so yeah, with that we have come to the end of this panel discussion. I would like to thank all the panelists, Dr. Fauzia, Mr. Sammarth, and Mr. Chetan, for sharing your insights from your lived experiences, going from the personal to the political, sharing what worked, what did not work, what do you think the generation coming should do it. It was really engaging discussion, and I think we can take conversations forward in different forums, also even you guys are staying. Thank you organizers for hosting us. It was indeed a pleasure for me and I hope for the panelists to be here and discussing on the theme. I think there's a lot of potential in this particular topic of embracing holistic and indigenous wisdom. And I hope that we all in our individual cases will take forward the learnings and implement them. I think with that, I would like to put a close to the panel. There's nothing else. Thank you, and thank you all the audience for staying here for almost an hour, bearing with us. I hope you got to learn a lot, and even if you didn't, then feel free to catch up during the lunch if there are some conversations which were left, which were not completed. I think they will be staying here for lunch, I hope. And yeah, so that's it from my end. Thank you, everyone.